Welcome back here to Hearthstone Grandmasters, the European region. I'm Raven, and joining me is Sottle to continue out the rest of the day here, as we have 2 more matches to finish before the weekend is over for us. But just in case you are either just tuning in or have plenty of time to watch some Hearthstone, there will be, of course, TJ and Frodan coming up after we are done, bringing you the Americas final day of this week. So plenty of Hearthstone action, no matter what time of day you do want to watch it. But for now, we do have our 2 matches left to go, and it's going to be Casie versus Bozzzton up next. And honestly, Sottle, I don't know, I'm getting more and more excited to see Casie play. I think at least him openly discussing his stress levels has got me heavily invested in how Casey's doing right now.
Yeah, for sure. He's been a pretty cool player to follow just throughout the emotional roller coaster that he's clearly been on throughout this season, where he hit a pretty incredible low so early, which just goes to show, how important every week of this round robin proceedings was, where he was 0-2 in his first week and he was just already looking crushed. And I was honestly worried of just whether he would be able to mentally recover from where he was, but he's been on fire since then, and he dispatched of, I believe, Pavel in his first game yesterday in double quick time. I think the whole series took like 30 minutes or something, which is half the length of one Priest mirror that we've had in certain other series. So pretty incredible stuff from Casie as always. But now he's going up against Bozzzton, who is now sat right down at the bottom of that division, looking at the one player who was clean broken below him in terms of match wins in Zim, having just picked up a win in that previous series and really put the pressure on it.
Yeah, and as we get straight into game number 1, very Casie fashion, just let's get going. I will say as well, Bozzzton's another player who I think, although he's 2-2, so by no means a horrible score, has just had a rough go of it in his series. Now, I don't know if that's just me remembering him a certain way, but I feel like Bozzzton's just had some series and some tough losses as opposed to when he just being beaten in just hard, secure ways. But let's see how this series goes. Casie on the Priest and Bozzzton on the Rogue. A fun matchup for you here, son.
Let's go. I hope it is not as heartbreaking and soul-destroying as the last one was, Raven.
Me too, because I don't think either of these players could have taken it. Or at least maybe that's true a few weeks ago. But now, already decisions here, as Bozzzton can coin out the Evil Miscreant. He wants to get cooking a little bit quicker. The only problem is, it's not really the aggressive push in any way, because the shape of Evil Miscreant and the lackeys themselves won't necessarily open up anything this early in the game. I actually think I like this for Bozzzton. Just get these played out and just see what it's going to give you going forward.
There's also the fact it's turn 1.
Oh, yeah. Went too fast for me as well. I like the way you waited that long to point that out. It's because
just let you hang yourself for like a minute straight.
The time I've been looking at the deck list, staring at them, wondering why they look wrong, and it's because Bozzzton's list has Rogue in it twice. So I'm looking at like, wait, what's going on here? And then I glance back and see, oh, coin, it's Evil Miscreant. Bozzzton's got time to consider this. Even look at the mana, because I am an idiot. Why did we go to a break if I'm not even refreshed afterwards? Who knows? But for now, the Bozzzton could be considering coin Evil Miscreant here. As
that's a great point, opening. And I have something very interesting to talk about that potential play. So I'm glad that you bring it up here on turn 2, where it is most relevant. This is interesting because Bozzzton now has an opportunity to stick a lackey on turn 5. Which Priest doesn't always have the tools, because they're going to be off board a lot of the time, because you get faster start as Rogue, to be dealing with just lackeys from hand, right? They might just have to shoot a Pedance or use a Shadow Madness to deal with your lackeys. So if they don't have that option, you can then coin Togwaggle on 5, and then get the treasure nice and early, and beat that Murazon counter from the opponent just by them not having the mana available to do so. So I actually really, really like Bozzzton holding on to coin here.
And now with this Feral Cat, it makes that option a little bit more appeasing as well, because he doesn't have to just play the lackey out now and then save it for going forward. So could have gone there with just the Feral Cat hero power. But also, although weak to AoE, these Faceless lackeys are actually putting work for Bozzzton, because we just saw Casie have to penance one of them, and that's a big deal. You've just penanced a free minion from a kind of free minion, right?
Yep. Yeah, they are. In terms of the overall pressure that Bozzzton is putting together, his game plan does seem solid so far. Just, maximizing the stats on board every turn.
Could just go for a Feral Cat and readjust depending on what is offered.
So
I think
many
even Feral Cat Evil Miscreant again isn't too bad. Because if there's a Breath of the Infinite, okay, you have 2 Miscreants left. If there's, I don't know, a 5-drop, so Shield of Galakrond, then cool. Great, you have all these things to trade into it with. Time Rip, great, what are you going to Time Rip? So, I don't know, this looks pretty good.
Many options.
You're going to skip the Feral Cat, just go straight for Miscreant. So more of this board now is resilient to a Breath of the Infinite.
Exactly, yeah. This gives them additional protection against the Breath of the Infinite. Also, some element of additional protection against Penance. Some element of additional protection against Shadow Madness as well.
Infinite off the top.
Okay, silence, right off the rip. Probably the best pickup that Casie could have got off of his first spell, though.
It'd be nice though if Bozzzton wants to, he can actually deal with this Sethic without even trading into it, so without giving Casie any health. I know overcommitting into something like this can be a bit of a trap, but for me, I think 4 health is probably worth holding the board, especially because he has so many lackeys.
So you're talking about Kobold of this?
Yeah.
I really want to have a board space next turn, though. What happens if Casie just passes and you've got all of these lackeys in play, but 7 minions in play as well?
You get to hit them for 7.
So many
Okay.
options.
Is that just good enough? Is my overall point, really. Then what's the next turn? What's like the punish for them passing? You hit them for 7, draw another card. Then what's their big payout for that? Oh no, you didn't play Tog. Well, you've still got to clear the board this turn, or I'll hit you for 7 again. Yeah, you've got a little bit more mana, but is this really going to be a Soul Mirror board? Oh, I need to Soul Mirror down these lackeys.
Okay.
Interesting. Importantly, he does retain the health on the Miscreants.
Think we hit some classic Bozzzton roping problems there, though. No, okay, he got the Feral Cat down. Fine. Fine.
I guess my point here is, if he was going to fill the board anyway, he obviously got the value from the Feral Cat and gains the minion, but did heal Casie back up? I wonder if that turn would have just looked any better if he just did go for the Kobold. Because it's not like he uses all his lackeys either, right? He has the Rush lackey to activate Togwaggle later in the game.
He does, yeah, but he's also hanging on to like the best or one of the best vanilla lackeys in the game, just for if you don't have to react to a particular situation. Because if your board gets cleared and your turn 7 ends up being like Rush lackey first into Heist Baron, that always feels a little bit miserable, but not too much because you are getting a Heist Baron Togwaggle turn, which is a very big deal.
I also think versus Priest, the Kobold lackey is a lot less good than it is versus a lot of other decks, right? Just interested, that's all, that he went for the trades instead. Another Apotheosis for Casie. Nothing quite yet to land it on, or not securely anyway.
Does have the Shadow Word Death to be able to deal with this Togwaggle coming down now, though. It's a pretty big deal.
Does he have to Tog? What if the Ancestral Guardian rushes it in and just puts 9 to face?
Okay.
As you can probably
like
tell, Sottle, I like pushing face damage against Priest as Rogue.
Yeah, I do too.
It just fits,
he
right?
can do the same thing with the Togwaggle, right? He already has a lackey in play, so he can play the Togwaggle first and then rush the Togwaggle and just do both of those things.
That's true.
So
But you could the other way, you could get a secret live as well, which is pretty sweet.
mean, if you break it down to do you want a secret active or do you want a treasure in your hand? It's probably the treasure, right?
Choose soon.
You like bamboozles.
I'm not even going to mention it. Come on. Bozzzton, what kind of gamer are you? He is a wand gamer, okay. Like, it just so happens that we are watching game after game after game where they just have the Murazond. Like, that isn't always the case, of course. There's 19 cards left in Casie's deck this turn. 18 cards on the turn where it becomes relevant.
One thing I will say is, if that was the turn for Bozzzton, unless something miraculous gets drawn, I assume he is just wanding next turn, almost no matter what. So I don't think you can pick wand and wait.
Needs 5 more minutes.
Casie did whiff on the Lazul, though. We saw that in the previous series with RDU, where he didn't have the Murazond, but he was able to pick it up with the Lazul anyway. Which is often just an even better way of doing it, because then, you know, casting your wand on the turn where you need to cast it costs less mana. Sometimes the problem you can run into is they wand and they hit like a nutty wand, like this one, and then you have to respond with your Murazond to steal the wand, but you then don't have mana left over to deal with the response if your wand isn't equally nutty. Yeah.
Also has so much damage. I hope he plays the secret now. 36 would be really good, because he really just wants to get this Galakrond, doesn't he? With a 0 mana Krunks in hand.
You just want to play it? Just have a 6/6 right now?
No, because of Soul Mirror.
Okay.
I don't think that previous board was going to be a Soul Mirror board for Casie, right? One more.
Okay. Sure.
I think just hold it. If he gets the, if he has 2 more draws for Galakrond, he can snap Krunks as well.
Sure.
And he still has the Kobold for 2 damage.
Casie praying for some help here. Daytrix, Seal Fate. Goes to his opponent's face. Okay,
Yes.
nice. Loving it.
He'd get the Water Hoof, but he might be a little bit slow.
Alright, come on.
Bamboozle
Get on
active,
with the
there's
main event
wand,
already.
Yep. That just
Yeah.
close to identical as well, wasn't it? Shield of
was,
Galakrond
yeah.
Krunks was like, wait, how deep does Murazond go on this copy your opponent's turn thing?
You are too late. His return is nigh.
And now this flick, in a weird way, can get this job done.
Can it?
Oh, he's a little bit short, actually, yeah. What a weird board.
Too late. His return is nigh.
His Galakrond is fully invoked, though, so that's an extra 5 damage from the...
He has a
the
rush,
claw?
Yeah, he has Rush Lucky as well, right?
Bamboozle
Oh,
should
it
deal
was a
with one
taunt.
of these taunts, except it didn't. Okay.
Still okay, right?
So Rush
Galakrond,
Lucky goes
Rush
through
Lucky,
4,
Kobold.
5... Yeah, he's fine.
What a weird game of Hearthstone. Casie is unimpressed, and I think he's telling his computer he is unimpressed.
Dark in the skies.
You have the
Okay, there we
He
go.
just concedes. Yeah, there we go. I was wondering, what's taking so long, guys? Yeah, Bozzzton takes a victory there, 1-0 with the Rogue, and we did see just overall a much more, and I think a much needed aggressive stance against Priest, even if it is just with some miscreants and a load of lackeys, which was the majority of the game there for Bozzzton. So I did like some of the plays he made there in saying, oh, actually, I'll just give this board of kind of weenie little dudes just extra health or make it a little bit awkward for the AoE. And yeah, just chip away. As I mentioned, if there was that pass turn we half discussed from Casie, then he gets hit for 7. And then what, right? Like, what's the better follow-up turn? So I like it overall from Bozzzton. Scratches a win there with that Rogue and has his Warrior and Hunter left over.
Yeah, I'm okay with it too. I think if you're going to take wand, you should do it only really with like on curve. I was going to say Kronxes, then on curve Togwaggles, or at least close to that. which is what Bozzzton had there with the turn 7 Togwaggle, I believe. Because as I said, like they're only about 1 in 3 to have drawn their Murozond at that point when they're not drawing natural cards. It is a card that a lot of Priest players will keep in the mulligan in that matchup. For that exact sort of interaction, so that does increase the odds a little bit more. But based on your opponent's kept cards and what they played, you can kind of narrow that down as well. So yeah, in that spot, I think Bozzzton was right to do what he did. He did hit a pretty nutty wand. As I said, you do just want maximum like initial tempo and development to come out from your wand there, which you kind of got with the Shielded Galakrond. So that means that then Casie would have A, had to have had the Murozond, and then B, also hit the nuts off his Murozond. Like you're looking at Murozond into Soul Mirror for 0, right, off the wand at that point to do anything.
Or literally Galakrond Crunks together
yeah,
to play them both, which would have been insane. And we are going to go into our game number 2. Casie on his Rogue now and going up against Bozzzton's Warrior. And since we have had some... I'll need a second to pull the Warrior list because that's the one I'm missing. Unless you have it as well, but I'll get it. But I believe Bozzzton is playing much more of a standard Warrior and not the bombs that I feel like we've talked about a lot over the past couple of
Bozzzton is just playing a pretty regular Warrior. Yeah, he's playing Terran Eggs, which, whether you want to call that standard or not at this point is up to you. But it's been pretty 50-50, I think, throughout the various regions. It's hard to say even, really, because we haven't really dug too far into the Warrior list because they get banned so often that it's hard to, get a good feel as to what everyone is playing individually. But yeah, it's a pretty standard Serpent Egg variation of the deck, let's put it that way.
Yep, live wire lances and not the wrench calibers that we've been seeing a bit more recently. I do feel like this is a pretty good. I mean, you could argue most things are matchups for Warrior. Well, we've talked to some of the others about this matchup and overall, but at least in my experience, I feel like I have a really good time versus Rogue. I don't think it puts on much pressure at all, and also you can make awkward boards in which they can't really deal with either. Seal Fates, while mostly means it's damaged all the time, and then much high variation on health with help from Blood Bowl Brutes and Challengers. One thing I will say is, one thing I learned to do very quickly is to not play a low board size Blood Bowl Brute into their, say, turn 6 or 7, because Flick is one thing that can really mess you up if you go for that specific play. Outside of that, a lot of it's just equip a weapon, whack him a few times with it, then Grom to the face to end the game.
Yep, yeah, pretty much. That sounds about right to me.
Really good answer here for Hanar is this one more challenger. Just easy, job done. It's not only killed it, it's still a 1/6 now.
Yeah. Argument here for Casie as to whether he wants to deal with it right now with the Blackjack Stunner, or whether he might be able to invest some of his health into, like, saying, allowing Bozzzton to dump some Inner Rages and Rampages on this thing, and then deal with those with the Blackjack Stunner as well. And of course, the punish for that is that Bloodsworn Mercenary comes down instead of just a buff on the Warmaw Challenger. And then you're in trouble.
Yeah, and I will mention as well, a little bit earlier in the round-robin phase of Grandmasters, we cast this matchup, and I believe it was Tice piloting the Rogue, and we saw almost like excessive use of Blackjack Stunner on almost every minion in the opening play for the Warrior, and it turned out very well. But the big difference is this Warmaw Challenger is a 4-drop now, not a 5-drop, i.e. this Blackjack Stunner no longer gives +2 mana cost. So that plan, I think, is going to be was probably just okay at the time, and I think now is not an actual go-to plan for the matchup.
Whoa! Job done. Bamboozle into Mana Saber.
Bamboozle's just the card. Okay. Draconic, not normally the best this early in the game, but if it gives you early plays that you just don't have access to, then it looks a lot better to me.
Bozzzton, stank facing that one. He knows exactly what's happening to him next turn.
He can't really do that much. Oh, I guess he could Bomb Wrangler. Oh, he doesn't have the extra mana, right? Oof.
Yep. Oof sounds about right, Raven.
Okay.
It's feels like it might be more of a Deathwing Mad Aspect game than usual. Yeah.
Bozzzton as well.
Feels
Sorry, just for those of you who know, the egg list often does not, and it does not here, run the natural Deathwing Mad Aspect.
Right. So dumb. He just ramps into Togwaggle.
Cobalt Spellkin just isn't that bad here.
Yeah, I like the Spellkin. But Bozzzton does have all the tools, despite the fact that Casie is off to an incredible start here. Bozzzton got early weapon, he has Risky Skipper even though it wasn't Ankar, and he has a Battle Rage in hand with plenty of payoff minions.
I think now might be a really good turn to replay this Warmall Challenger.
Just poke the 1-1.
Yeah. Get it on board, it's a 1-9. And also, most importantly, any other turn that Bozzzton wants to do, he wants to do with more mana. So I think it's important in this deck, because he's still pretty healthy. It's important with this deck to not, like, barely go off. You really need to just go nuts when you decide to pull the trigger on Risky Skipper turns.
Right.
If they're going to be big Risky Skipper turns. And I think Bozzzton's hand says he can do that, so he should wait and do that later.
I must choose.
Because Casie has to respect the challenger, right? It's a 1-9.
If he doesn't, it's going to be a disaster, because there'll be Rampage and Bloodsworn Mercenary on the follow-up afterwards.
It just has to be dealt with one way or the other. I mean, we saw it get stunned early in the game, and it is only 1 power, but the threat isn't in the power.
Help.
Oh,
Okay.
at least he can't play both.
The Brotherhood shall prevail.
Yeah, it's true. It's actually not as an impressive Edwin as it could have been, right? Is he ever waiting there? He has Cobalt Spellkin in hand. He could have still made like a pretty giga Edwin if he waits.
I think that's what he's thinking about now. Because Casie looked angry at that turn, and on paper, that turn wasn't bad.
Right.
But you rightly pointed out that he could have still Cobalt Spellkin, played 2 1-cost spells, and a secret, and Van Cleef next turn.
I think also he just killed a one. Wait, what did he? He killed a 1/2, right? With his dagger and the Togwaggle attack.
Oh,
Is
wait,
that what
did he?
happened?
Wait, did he?
Yes.
If that
that's
happened,
exactly what he did.
my brain did not even conceive it. Okay, yeah, that is ridiculous.
Yeah. So
That
I'm pretty
felt so-
sure that.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that Togwaggle attack was supposed to go into the 1/9 in most realistic scenarios, because you should generally do that against Warrior. When there's a Warmall Challenger, just cut into its health as much as you can while it has 1 attack, even if you're not going to deal with it outright. But yeah, I mean, it seems like the dagger attack should be going into the Lackey, and the Togwaggle attack should be going into the 1/9. I don't know why anything hit the 1/2.
Crazy, it's one of the few times I'd say that Casie might need to just slow down a little bit. He wasn't roping, he wasn't rushed, and had that just thing, it's happened to us all. If we're rushed and roped and you just misclick or anything like that, he had time. There was no big crazy, and he is punished.
Right.
He's punished for this. As we mentioned earlier, the whole point that Bozzzton playing the Warmall Challenger out last turn was because it should be respected.
Oh, up to no good. Me too.
Luckily for Casie,
At least
he has the
Ambush
poison.
is there to clean up, though.
And he's still got plenty of gas, still got the Galacrond, he's still... I don't think it was a game-losing play, but for someone of Casey's level, it was just an embarrassing play, honestly. Because it just shouldn't happen, should it?
Right. Again, we've talked a lot about Casey's little mental roller coaster that he's been through this season, and hopefully he's able to brush past that and show us how good of a player he is, because that is the last thing he needs when it finally looked like he was turning the corner again and just, being good old happy, jolly, clowny Casie again.
And as you mentioned, I think at the very start of the day, when I was saying that, Casie from bottom to the top of the division, he could go back to the bottom again. After a few matches, right? So it's not as if he is safe. So there's still a lot to worry about for all these players in Division B. So the stress is there. No one's home free, really. But for now, yeah, I agree. Casie just needs to take a breath in. Casie, one of the best players in the world at playing fast. No doubt about it. Sometimes it's worth just taking a breath.
You fell right into my trap.
Tell you one thing, Bozzzton is greeting the heck out of this skipper turn. He's going to make this thing pop.
I do like it because he has the health, right? And although he is starting to get beaten up a little bit, yet again, Casie probably just doesn't ignore this egg. Which means Bozzzton's taking less damage to face again. So he can just take more and more time to build the ultimate, maybe even a mega bomb wrangler turn. The risky skipper.
Right.
But the one thing I do think is very difficult about the warrior deck is knowing your limits and knowing when is enough for a risky skipper. When is the job done? Because sometimes you do just need a little one with maybe 1-2 waves. But sometimes you need the full proc of full armor smith's worth.
Right. And here's the problem you sometimes run into is your opponent just knows what's up and just makes a bunch of 4 health minions on the board. And 4 is not the number that you're particularly good at doing when your risky skipper only has 3 health.
Yeah, it's got rampage though, Sal.
He also has Deathwing Mad Aspect if he just really believes that it's not going to go into this poison.
Oh, interesting.
This is the turn he had earmarked. This is the turn where it all lines up. He has the Battle Rage to put it all together with the Bomb Wrangler and everything else.
Yeah, and the Battle Rage is what pushes it over the edge, isn't it? Because at first I was wondering whether he was actually just going to try and really go off with the Bloodsworn Mercenary on the Bomb Wrangler. To just say, here's just the most damage, the most potential removal, and the most annoyances for Casie. But just drawing that many cards is just 110% worth it.
Yeah, the Battle Rage is just so core to the matchup as well, because a lot of the time, when you get towards sort of the endgame proceedings, you are going to be losing board against Rogue most of the time. But your job then is just to assemble a big Korkron combo or Grom in a Rage and get Corsair Cash Weapon and just start smacking them and end the game with Korkrons, whatever it is. It's some combination of cards that deal a ton of damage. Battle Rage is required to draw through and get them. And Bozzzton's in pretty good shape here, honestly. He has 2 weapons still left in his deck and Corsair Cash in hand to start getting that damage rolling. He has his second skipper to be able to make 1 more big board clear if he needs it. Ooh, you hate to see it. Do you also hate to see this one? Yep, you sure do.
He also has, unlike, say, board control, Bozzzton's actually cut 1 Sky Raider, which we've seen a few players flirt with as well. But also is playing the second Armor Smith, which means he can recover some health too.
He just has the hand. Korkron, Inner Rage, Bloodsworn Mercenary, Rampage. Can clear board this turn and drop the Corsair Cash. I kind of like... I don't know how I feel about this Bloodsworn Mercenary. I was kind of more into just the Corsair Cash and just swinging the weapon this turn.
This makes your opponent have the most awkward turn though, right? Because there's multiple waves of bombs, which is a nightmare to deal with. And
yeah, I guess so.
Because he has Rampage, he doesn't need to go Korkron, Inner Rage, Bloodsworn. He can just go Korkron, Inner Rage, Rampage, Bloodsworn, right? So I think this just uses everything more, although it would mean he gets the Livewire Lance equipped.
Yeah, so that's 3 damage this turn and 3 damage next turn that you've already paid for. Like, on average, does this 1 extra Bomb Wrangler account for that much damage over the course of 2 turns? I'm not so sure.
Oh.
Dead. Just dead. Korkron. Inner Rage. Rampage. Bloodsworn Mercenary. Pack it up. 2-0.
All right, getting another win, and yeah, I will agree with you, and I said it a little bit earlier on as well. I liked Bozzzton just saying, I'm not actually under any great threat. I'm going to drop this Warmaul Challenger down. That's going to be annoying. I'm going to drop this egg down. That's probably going to be annoying enough to deal with. And in that time, he's just assembling the insane hand he got. He gained the armor. He did the first wave of Bomb Wrangler. But most importantly, as you pointed out, he got the big Battle Rage off. And imagine if that was instead earlier in the game and he got 2 cards, 3 cards from the Battle Rage. Just a world of difference.
Yeah, it is. I think, that's always something that you have to be planning out when you're playing Warrior, is looking at your hand and saying, okay, in the ideal world, what do I do with this hand, right? Whether it's, copy a Bomb Wrangler and Battle Rage in the same turn, or whether it's I'm dying, so I need to copy my Armor Smith. And again, I'd also like to Battle Rage in the same turn if possible, and then work out what turn that happens on, and then count backwards as to how you actually get to that point in terms of using your other cards around that to be able to be in a manageable position up until then, which I think is exactly what Bozzzton was doing, because he occupied the time up until that point really with just like a Warmaul Challenger and a Rampage, basically. He played the Warmaul Challenger twice after it got sapped from the Blackjack Stunner, and then used Rampage to occupy board after whatever happened to Casie in the middle of that game. I'm not entirely sure what happened on that dagger turn. It was incredibly strange. But now we find our way all the way back to the hill now with Bozzzton in a must-win scenario. Casie in a scenario which would pretty much make him safe in the division overall, as he picked up his 4th win here with the way that the rest of the division breaks down, with all the 2-win players having to play each other. And now Casie is up against it, with Bozzzton having a match here with Highlander Hunter, which has been pretty 50-50 throughout GM overall, honestly. Much closer than it ever seems to be when any of us test the matchup.
Yeah, and I'll point out something else as well. A lot of this, in my experience, the way you do well in this matchup is you absolutely hyper-aggressively fight for the board as Hunter. All you want to do is take their minions away, because Demon Hunter can't generally sweep a bigger board from the Hunter, because the Hunter minions have much higher health as it gets to mid. Bozzzton's list has its general cards, and then for me, extras of Injured Tolve we can see in the hand. He's running the Scale Rider, which is effectively a 3-mana 3/3 killer Demon Hunter minion a lot of the time. He's also running still the Frozen Shadow Weaver, the Diving Griffin, the Desert Spear. So even just a few extra early game cards might really come in clutch here, because he isn't running that Grand Slam. So he has got some of those late game cards missing. He isn't running some one of the more expensive Dragon slots that players sometimes do. But he also has Maya as well. So he just has all of this heavy early game, and you can out-pressure the Demon Hunter in this matchup.
I see his weakness.
And boy, oh boy, does he have a good draw. Coin 2 into Desert Spear, finds Zephyrus off the rip. He already has the Scale Rider, just looking for the dragon to activate it now.
Fish one, as and when he wants. It is really good.
You know what to do, right down the middle. Unlucky.
Oh, and there's the dragon. You can just play on curve here and just use the Scale Rider to get rid of the Satyr.
Yep, like it.
Normally, I would like picking up the Desert Spear as soon as possible, get it equipped, but you tank a lot of damage, and that was just so clean that it's worth it.
Oh yeah? Casie going in? Casie racing?
He does have double Gale Strike and a Claybound Adept.
He does.
The big deal here now, because Bozzzton has all the early game already, I want to see him save this Zephyrus for a Healing Touch. Or the finishing blow, obviously. He's that far ahead. But I think he doesn't need to do anything with Zephyrus.
I think perhaps even more relevant than Healing Touch in this matchup is Soul Cleave. I think that card, when you can activate it, which Zephyrus really likes giving you Soul Cleave. If you smoke 2 minions on the board and heal for 4, that's an insane tempo swing a lot of the time against Demon Hunter, because you're actually actively killing their minions with the 2 damage effect.
And that's it, right? I mainly, Hunter can't heal, so use Zephyrus for heal is the overall point, because you can do everything else with your deck in this matchup.
Zixor?
I moves quickly.
What? Oh, he's never Dwarven Sharpshooter, right? It's actually strangely awkward for Demon Hunter to deal with that 1/3.
It is.
Being able to just pick off minions.
It just kind of feels like a worse Zigzaw in this position, though.
On this turn, yes, I
Yeah.
completely agree. And that's the trick, right? If you're playing it this turn, then it's Zigzaw.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sometimes that Dwarven Sharpshooter is an absolute nightmare for Demon Hunter.
Yep.
They seemingly can never just deal 3, and you always get to ping off a minion or 2. Right.
Casie going to hold on to the Glade-bound Adept here. No real premium target for it on board. Makes sense. And now this Desert Spear can start popping, potentially.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice looking board for it.
Even the kill command now, which will be activated by the Desert Spear, worst case scenario. And there's Varanus next turn to kill off anything Casie plays.
Yep.
Oh, isn't Islander Hunter just a beautiful player as well?
Problem is, if he Desert Spears here, he might just have to Bloodfen Raptor to not be floating mana. I think Hero Power here feels kind of ugly. In which case, is Zephyrus going to play ball? Like, what are you going to get? High main?
I think he's okay.
Do you?
Yeah, I think he's far enough ahead.
I mean, he's literally not ahead in real terms. I mean, we can argue like based on what we can see in the hands and everything else, but like just in terms of the board state right now, if he ends here, he's not ahead.
Is he okay?
It appears not. No.
No, yeah, I don't know. I'm worried. Okay, so my point overall, I guess, with the Zephyrus is because Bozzzton has Varanus in hand, it just insta-kills
Yeah, I
like
get that,
anything,
yeah.
then he can hold the Zephyrus. Playing the Zephyrus, there's obvious merit now. Well, this has to be dealt with, right? In case he's, again, on the back foot. I think just this play is so powerful that it was enough to hold Zephyrus. As it happens, yeah, Casie almost hitting hysterics right now as he is getting beat pretty hard so far in this game. But Demon Hunter has done crazier things in the past.
It has, and he gets to just rip his skull this turn, coming all the way from the right-hand side of his hand. The rarely seen right Skull of Gul'dan.
Alas, poor warlock.
Let's find I-Beam number 2, but it's a pretty low impact skull overall, it's got to be said.
Yeah, face tanking the 7 is something you definitely don't want to do.
There is still the Faceless Corruptor in the deck here for the Diving Griffin, so it's not a guaranteed prime. But since Desert Spear is equipped, drawing Faceless Corruptor is by no means a bad thing right now.
Right. Yeah, it's just, and again, it's the spear works so well with the deck, it's actually kind of absurd. Oh, Alexstrasza looks fantastic.
Alexstrasza security blanket.
Yeah, you just pick it.
He's going to have plays for the coming turns, no matter what he draws here off the Diving Griffin. If he gets Zigzaw Prime, that's probably just game over. If he gets Faceless Corruptor, sure, he's playing Faceless Corruptor next turn, so I don't think he needs the Dragon more.
Mm-hmm. And it's
So yeah,
just, it dodges the absolute worst case, right? Of like maybe literally Warglaves into meta with an I-Beam in hand, right? You know, like just the absolute insane draws from Demon Hunter can just straight up kill you. So I really like this pick here. Gets the Zigzaw for next turn as well.
I also
Bozzzton.
really like Bozton's order of operations here. He went Primordial Explorer first because no matter which rush minion, so there was 2 random effects, right? The Discover and which minion he got off the Diving Griffin. No matter which one he got, the rest of his turn wasn't going to change that turn because neither of them were playable. So he went for the Primordial Explorer first, which is the one that might change the turn. But then he played his Diving Griffin first to see which rush minion he drew before he decided whether he used the Desert Spear or not. So then because he got Zigzaw Prime, he used the Desert Spear. If he'd got Faceless Corruptor, he wouldn't have.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Was Casie always I-beaming this minion this turn? If so,
he
he's just
always
paid more
I-beaming
mana for it
this
than he needed to.
I am complete.
No. Answer, no.
No, he's just going to ignore this, actually. Just Dragonbane here, right?
See it?
Hmm?
Is that better than 4/4/4s?
I guess.
Like Altruist, I guess you have one extra health
Well,
in terms of like still representing a threat that wins the game.
And it's also this 6-0. Okay, well, there's the concede. Bozzzton takes the win. I'll explain my point in a second, but Bozzzton takes it 3-0 there. Looking pretty good, especially in that last game. And as I mentioned, with Bozzdton's build, it just comes together that little bit more consistently because, as we saw, Bozzzton had all of the early draws. And you might think, oh, so lucky, Highlander Hunter. You know, it shouldn't draw that well. Look at his list. 3/4 of the way down his list, we're only at 5 mana. Put it that way, right? And a good half of his list only goes up to 3, maybe more than half his list actually, only even goes up to 3 mana. So although they're unique cards, excuse me, there's a lot of cards filling out those 1, 2, and 3 slots. So it does actually do it quite consistently. But my only point there was the Dragonbane does the damage and sets up the kill command, whereas the Zixor, if played by Ultra Worlds, has actually achieved nothing. You've not impressed hero power that turn. I did just wonder at the end there if the Dragonbane was a little bit better, but it doesn't matter at this moment in time. As Bozzzton does take the win 3-0.
Yeah, I think also having that Alexstrasza in hand, as we were talking about, as the security blanket was a pretty big deal for Bozzzton because he knows that, like, even if he sets up and he doesn't, somehow the board gets cleared, as long as Altruist doesn't also straight up kill him, which I guess is also sometimes weirdly possible that turn. I don't know. I'm not even sure if Casie was on 10 mana or not, whether he can Altruist Skull in the same turn and get 3/0 cost cards. But it was a pretty secure position no matter what Bozzzton ended up doing at the end of the game.
Yep, and we can see how the day has shaped up so far. And just a reminder, if you've tuned in a little bit later, maybe missed the first match or two of the day, that's fine. You can check out all the VODs on the Hearthstone Esports YouTube channel and see what's going on there with some of the early games. Yala taking the 3-0 versus Psycho. And Pavel and RDU is probably the match of the day to watch for me, as long as you can deal with some stressful situations.
And a lot of me shouting, as long as you can deal with that as well, yeah.
You shouting is a stressful situation for me, Sol. So it's the same thing as far as I'm concerned. But we are going to get straight into Viper versus Kolento. And wow, is that graphic looks like it's correct. A druid ban here, Sottle. Enjoy explaining that one. Take it away. What's going on?
Help! I have no idea what's happening.
Do your job. Seriously. Do it.
So hang on. Viper has Quest, right? Quest Warlock, Rogue, and Warrior.